The autumn wind whistled through the trees as Maria walked home from her part-time job at the local library. The sun was setting early these days, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and purple. At just 16, she had already learned the value of hard work, helping her mum with bills while keeping her grades up for her dream of attending medical school. That Thursday afternoon felt different somehow. The streets were quieter than usual, with only a few cars passing by. Maria had just finished organizing the children's section at the library, her favorite task because she loved seeing kids' faces light up when they found the perfect book. Her feet hurt from standing all day, but she didn't mind. Every dollar she earned brought her closer to her goals. As she walked past the old coffee shop on Pine Street, something caught her eye. There, lying next to a parking meter, was a thick black leather wallet. It looked expensive, the kind you'd see in those fancy downtown stores where everything costs more than her weekly paycheck. The wallet was soaking wet from the morning rain, but otherwise undamaged. Maria's heart started beating faster. She looked around, hoping to spot someone searching frantically for their lost possession, but the street remained empty. Picking up the wallet, she could feel how heavy it was. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it, not from the temptation of keeping it, but from worry about the owner who must be panicking right now. Inside, she found what looked like a small fortune, crisp $100 bills neatly stacked together. There were also several platinum credit cards, business cards, and a driver's license belonging to someone who lived in the wealthy Highland Park area. The photo showed a stern-looking older white man in an expensive suit. Maria recognized him from local news coverage about big real estate developments in the city. Her mind wandered to her mom, who had been pulling double shifts at the hospital. They were behind on rent, and her mom's arthritis medicine wasn't covered by insurance. The money in this wallet could solve so many of their problems, pay for 3 months of rent, buy proper winter coats for both of them, or even help with her college application fees. But then she remembered something her grandmother always said: "Your character is what you do when nobody's watching." The memory of her grandmother's warm smile and wise words filled her heart. Her grandma had raised her to believe that doing the right thing wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. Besides, Maria thought about how she'd feel if she lost her own wallet. Even though she never carried more than $40, losing her bus pass and school ID would be a nightmare. She could only imagine how worried this person must be, probably turning their house upside down looking for their wallet. The street lights were starting to come on, casting long shadows on the sidewalk. Maria pulled out her phone and checked the address on the driver's license. Highland Park was on the other side of town. It would take her at least 45 minutes by bus to get there. She'd have to text her mom that she'd be late for dinner, but she knew her mother would understand. As she waited at the bus stop, clutching the wallet safely in her hands, Maria felt a mix of emotions. She was nervous about going to the wealthy neighborhood where she'd stick out like a sore thumb, but she was also proud of herself for doing what she knew was right. Little did she know that this simple act of kindness would set in motion a chain of events that would change not just her life, but her entire community. The bus ride felt longer than usual as Maria sat quietly, the wallet heavy in her jacket pocket. Every bump in the road reminded her of its presence. She watched through the foggy window as the neighborhoods gradually changed, from familiar corner stores and small houses to manicured lawns and expensive cars. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her mom. "Everything okay, sweetie? Dinner's almost ready." Maria smiled, picturing her mother in their tiny kitchen, probably still in her nurse's scrubs, trying to cook while dealing with her aching joints. She quickly replied, explaining about finding the wallet. Her mom's response came immediately. "That's my girl. Be safe and call me when you're heading home." As the bus continued its journey, Maria carefully opened the wallet again, this time counting the money inside. $2,300. The amount made her dizzy. That was more than her mom made in 2 weeks of work, including overtime. She noticed a small photo tucked behind the credit cards. A young girl, probably around 8, smiling widely with missing front teeth. Maybe the owner's daughter or granddaughter. Maria thought about her own family's struggles. Just last week, she'd overheard her mom crying on the phone, talking to the insurance company about coverage for her medication. The rent was due soon, and her little brother needed new glasses. The money in this wallet could solve so many problems. No one would ever know. She could just take a few $100s and still return the wallet with most of its contents. But then she remembered the field trip she'd been saving up for, 3 months of carefully setting aside a portion of her library paycheck. Her class was going to visit a medical college, and she couldn't wait to see the laboratories and talk to real medical students. She'd earned that money honestly, and even though it wasn't much, it made her proud. Taking someone else's money, no matter how rich they were, would feel nothing like that. The bus stopped at a red light, and Maria noticed a homeless man sleeping on a bench. She thought about how easy it was to judge people without knowing their stories. Maybe the wallet's owner worked hard for their money too. Maybe they had their own struggles that money couldn't solve. Who was she to decide they deserved to lose some of it? Her grandmother's voice echoed in her head again. Life will test you when you least expect it. This was definitely one of those tests. Maria remembered how her grandma used to clean houses in this same wealthy neighborhood, walking home every evening because she couldn't afford the bus fare. Still, she never took anything that wasn't hers, not even when some families accused her of stealing their missing jewelry, which they later found in their own drawers. The sun had almost set now, and the streetlights were creating pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. Maria checked the time, 6:45 p.m. Her mum would be worried, but this couldn't wait until tomorrow. Lost wallets had a way of becoming empty wallets if you waited too long. She pulled the small cord above her head, signaling for the next stop. According to her phone's map, she was getting close to the address. As she stepped off the bus, the cool evening air hit her face. The houses here were huge, set far back from the street behind elaborate gates and perfectly trimmed hedges. Maria straightened her school uniform and took a deep breath. She felt out of place in this neighborhood, but she reminded herself that she was doing the right thing. Her mom always said that integrity wasn't about doing what's easy. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. With that thought giving her courage, she began walking toward the address, the wallet secure in her pocket, ready to complete her mission. The iron gates loomed before Maria, their intricate design casting strange shadows in the fading daylight. She'd never seen a house this big up close. It looked more like something from a movie than a real home. Security cameras blinked silently from various corners, their red lights watching her every move. Her finger hovered over the intercom button for a moment. The small brass panel looked freshly polished, reflecting her nervous face back at her. Taking another deep breath, she pressed the button. A sharp buzz made her jump slightly, followed by several seconds of silence that felt like hours. "Who is it?" The voice that crackled through the speaker was deep and impatient, making Maria's heart beat even faster. She cleared her throat, trying to sound confident despite her nerves. "Good evening, sir. I found your wallet on Pine Street near the library. I'm here to return it to you." Her voice came out steadier than she expected, remembering her debate team practice sessions at school. More silence followed. Maria shifted her weight from one foot to another, very aware of how dark it was getting. The street was empty except for a few expensive cars parked in driveways, and the only sound was the gentle rustling of leaves in the evening breeze. "How do I know it's really my wallet?" The voice had an edge of suspicion that made Maria's stomach tighten. She'd been worried about this. A young black girl in a school uniform probably wasn't what he expected to see at his gate. "Your driver's license is inside, sir. It has your address here, and there's also a photo of a little girl behind your credit cards." She kept her voice polite and professional, just like when she helped difficult customers at the library. The intercom crackled again, but this time with the sound of the gates slowly opening. A light came on, illuminating the long driveway that led to the house. Maria could see a figure standing in the doorway, watching her. Her legs felt heavy as she walked up the smooth concrete path, lined with perfectly spaced garden lights. The man who stood at the door was tall and imposing in an expensive-looking suit, as if he'd just returned from an important meeting. His expression was hard to read as he watched her approach. Maria noticed his hand was gripping the doorframe tightly, his knuckles almost white. "I found it about an hour ago," Maria explained, carefully pulling the wallet from her jacket pocket. "I checked the ID for the address and took the bus here. Everything's still inside, all the cards and money." She held out the wallet, maintaining eye contact despite her nervousness. The man took the wallet without a word, opening it and quickly rifling through its contents. Maria stood patiently, her hands now empty at her sides. She could smell someone cooking dinner inside the house, something that reminded her of the fancy restaurants she passed on her way to school. "You took the bus all the way here." His tone had changed slightly, a hint of surprise breaking through the suspicion. He looked up from the wallet, really seeing her for the first time. "From Pine Street?" Maria nodded, pulling her jacket closer against the evening chill. "Yes, sir. I didn't want you to worry about your wallet being lost. I know I'd be scared if I lost mine." She smiled slightly, thinking of her own worn fabric wallet with its carefully saved bus tickets and library card. The man seemed to be struggling with something internally. He looked at the wallet again, then back at Maria, then over her shoulder at the dark street behind her. The silence stretched uncomfortably. "Well," he finally said, his voice gruff. "That was unexpected." He reached into the wallet and pulled out a bill, holding it out to her. "Here's something for your trouble." Maria felt her face grow warm. "No thank you, sir. I didn't do it for a reward. I just wanted to return your property safely." Her mom's words rang in her head. "Integrity isn't for sale." The man's eyebrows rose slightly, and for a moment, Maria thought she saw something like respect flicker across his face. But it disappeared quickly, replaced by an unreadable expression. He stepped back, his hand moving to close the door. "Well, thank you," he said curtly, already turning away. "You can find your way back to the gate." It wasn't really a question, and the door was closing before Maria could respond. Standing alone on the doorstep, Maria felt a mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. She'd done the right thing, she was sure of that. But something about the interaction left her feeling unsettled. As she walked back down the driveway, the security lights clicking on with each step, she pulled out her phone to call her mom. At least someone would be happy to see her when she got home. The next morning dawned cold and gray. Maria yawned as she arranged her books in her locker, still tired from getting home late the night before. Her mom had waited up for her with a plate of warm food and lots of proud hugs, making the long trip worth it. They'd talked about the man's reaction over dinner, and her mom had assured her that she'd done the right thing, regardless of how he'd responded. "Girl, you look exhausted." Her best friend Lily appeared beside her, carrying a stack of chemistry notebooks. "Did you stay up late studying for the bio test again?" Maria shook her head, closing her locker carefully. "No, something weird happened yesterday. Remember that fancy part of town where your aunt works as a housekeeper?" She started telling Lily about finding the wallet as they walked to their first class. $2,000? Lily whispered, her eyes wide. "That's crazy, and he didn't even offer you a ride home or anything? After you went all that way?" The morning passed slowly. Maria had trouble focusing on her classes, her mind wandering back to the strange encounter at the mansion. During second period math, she caught herself doodling little gates and houses in her notebook instead of solving equations. The classroom door opened suddenly, making everyone look up from their work. Their teacher, Mr. Chen, stood frozen for a moment, an unusual expression on his face. Behind him were two police officers in full uniform, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "Is Maria Thompson here?" the taller officer asked, scanning the room. Maria felt her heart stop for a moment. She could feel every eye in the class turn toward her. "Yes, she's here," Mr. Chen said slowly, his forehead creased with concern. "Is everything all right?" "We need to speak with her," the second officer said. "Please come with us, young lady." Maria's hands trembled as she gathered her things. The walk to the door felt like miles, her classmates' whispers following her every step. Lily caught her eye, mouthing, "What's happening?" Maria could only shake her head. She had no idea. In the hallway, the officers led her to the principal's office. Her mind raced through everything she'd done recently, trying to figure out what could have gone wrong. The wallet, it had to be about the wallet. But she'd returned it with everything inside. She'd done the right thing, hadn't she? The principal, Mrs. Rivera, was waiting at her desk, her usually friendly face serious. "Sit down, Maria," she said gently, gesturing to a chair. The officers stood on either side of the door, making the small office feel even smaller. "Maria," the taller officer began, taking out a notepad. "We received a complaint this morning from Mr. Richardson about his wallet." He paused, watching her face carefully. "He says when he checked his wallet more carefully last night, he noticed some money was missing." Would you like to tell us about that? The room seemed to spin for a moment. Maria felt her chest tighten as she gripped the edges of her chair. Missing money? She managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. But I didn't take anything. I returned it exactly as I found it. He's quite certain about the amount that was in there, the second officer added. He says he always carries exactly $3,000 in cash, and now there's only $2,300. Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. Her grandmother's words came to her again, stand tall in your truth. She took a deep breath and looked directly at the officers. I found the wallet yesterday after work. I counted the money when I found it. There was exactly $2,300 inside. I didn't take a single dollar. I even turned down a reward when he offered it. Mrs. Rivera leaned forward. Maria has never been in any trouble here. She's one of our best students. There must be some mistake. We still need to investigate the complaint, the first officer said, though his tone had softened slightly. Mr. Richardson is a prominent member of the community, and he's quite adamant about this. Maria felt a strange mix of emotions, fear, anger, hurt, and something else she couldn't quite name. She thought about how the man had barely looked at her, how quickly he dismissed her. Now she understood the uneasy feeling she had leaving his house. I'd like to call my mom, she said quietly but firmly. And I want her to be here for any more questions. Her voice shook slightly, but she held her head high. She might be scared, but she knew her truth. She'd done nothing wrong, and she wasn't going to let anyone make her feel like she had. #True Life Story, an unexpected act of honesty. Part 1, the unexpected discovery. Jasmine Thompson, a quiet 16-year-old junior at Westfield High School, was walking home from her part-time job at the local coffee shop when she spotted a leather wallet lying on the sidewalk. The wallet looked expensive, with intricate stitching and a designer label. Most teenagers might have been tempted to keep it or ignore it, but Jasmine's strict upbringing by her single mother had instilled strong values of integrity and honesty. Part 2, the wallet's owner. Later that evening, Jasmine discovered the wallet belonged to Robert Calloway, a prominent local tech entrepreneur and millionaire known for his philanthropic efforts and high-profile business ventures. The wallet contained several credit cards, a substantial amount of cash, and important-looking business documents. Without hesitation, Jasmine decided to return the wallet intact. Part 3, the return. The next morning, Jasmine tracked down Robert Calloway's office address and personally delivered the wallet. Mr. Calloway was stunned by her honesty. Impressed by the teenage girl's integrity, he not only thanked her profusely, but also offered her a personal check as a reward. Jasmine politely declined, explaining that returning lost property was simply the right thing to do. Part 4, the unexpected twist. However, later that same day, something shocking happened. During her third period algebra class, Jasmine was called to the principal's office. To her surprise, 2 police officers were waiting for her. Her heart raced as she wondered what could possibly be wrong. Part 5, accusations and tension. The officers began questioning Jasmine about the wallet, suggesting that she might have stolen something or had suspicious intentions. Despite her calm explanations and the truth of her actions, the interrogation felt invasive and uncomfortable. Her classmates watched through the office windows, whispering and staring. Part 6, Mr. Calloway intervenes. The principal's office felt suffocating. Jasmine sat rigid in her chair, her palms sweating and heart racing as the 2 police officers continued their questioning. She could hear muffled whispers and shuffling outside the door. Her classmates were watching, and the thought made her stomach churn. I'm telling you the truth, Jasmine said quietly, her voice steady despite the trembling inside. I found the wallet on the street and returned it completely untouched. One of the officers leaned forward, his expression stern. And you expect us to believe you just happened to find an expensive wallet belonging to a wealthy businessman? Before Jasmine could respond, the door burst open. Mr. Calloway walked in, his presence filling the room with an unexpected calm. He was dressed in an expensive suit, but something about his demeanor was different from what Jasmine had expected when she first met him. I can vouch for everything, he said, his voice firm but not aggressive. This young lady did exactly what an honest person should do. The officers exchanged confused glances. Mr. Calloway pulled out his phone, quickly showing them something, probably emails or messages confirming Jasmine's account of returning the wallet. She could have kept the money, Mr. Calloway continued. There was cash, credit cards, important documents, but she chose to return everything intact. Jasmine watched in disbelief. This powerful businessman was standing up for her, a teenage girl from a completely different world. She noticed how the officer's tone started changing, their aggressive stance softening. "My company values integrity above everything," Mr. Calloway explained. And this young woman demonstrated more integrity in one moment than many adults do in their entire lives. The principal, who had been quietly listening, nodded in agreement. The tension in the room began to dissolve, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. One of the officers cleared his throat. "We'll need to document this," he said, his voice now professional but no longer accusatory. As paperwork was being filled out, Mr. Calloway glanced at Jasmine. Their eyes met, and he gave her a small, reassuring smile. It wasn't a patronizing look, but one of genuine respect. "Would you mind stepping outside for a moment?" the principal asked Jasmine. She walked out, her legs feeling slightly weak. The school hallway, usually bustling with noise, seemed unnaturally quiet. A few students were still peering through the office windows, their faces a mix of curiosity and confusion. Minutes later, Mr. Calloway emerged. "Everything's been cleared up," he said. "No further issues." Jasmine nodded, unsure of what to say. The entire experience felt surreal, from finding the wallet to this unexpected moment of vindication. "Listen," Mr. Calloway said, pulling out a business card. "My team is always looking for bright, honest young people. Would you be interested in talking about some opportunities?" The card felt heavy in her hand. Not because of its physical weight, but because of what it represented, a potential path she had never imagined possible. As he walked away, Jasmine realized something profound had just happened. This wasn't just about returning a lost wallet anymore. This was about being seen, about integrity being recognized across social and racial boundaries. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. "You okay, baby? Heard what happened. So proud of you." Jasmine smiled. Sometimes doing the right thing was its own reward, and sometimes it opened doors you never knew existed. Part 7. Aftermath and Recognition. The incident became a local news story, highlighting Jasmine's remarkable character. Mr. Calloway, true to his philanthropic nature, established a scholarship fund for her and offered her a summer internship at his company. What had started as a simple act of returning a lost wallet had transformed into an unexpected opportunity that would change Jasmine's life trajectory. Note: this story is inspired by true events, but details have been dramatized for narrative impact. The next few weeks were a whirlwind Jasmine never expected. What started as a simple act of returning a lost wallet had turned her entire world upside down. Local news outlets picked up the story, but not in the sensational way she feared. Instead, they focused on her honesty, her quiet strength. Her mother, working 2 jobs to support their family, watched with tears in her eyes during a local news interview. "I just did what I thought was right," Jasmine told the reporter, slightly uncomfortable with all the attention. "My mom always taught me that your character matters more than anything else." Those words resonated. The story spread across social media, shared thousands of times. People from all walks of life were talking about a teenage girl who chose integrity over opportunity. Mr. Calloway wasn't just making an empty promise. A week after the wallet incident, he invited Jasmine to his company's headquarters. The massive glass building looked like something from a different world compared to her neighborhood. Her mom accompanied her, nervously adjusting her second-hand blazer. Inside, the office was nothing like Jasmine imagined. Instead of feeling intimidated, she felt welcomed. Mr. Calloway introduced her to his team, explaining how her simple act of honesty had impressed him more than any resume ever could. "We're creating a scholarship," he explained, sitting across from Jasmine and her mother. "Full ride to college, plus a summer internship program specifically for students who demonstrate exceptional character." Her mother's hands shook as she listened. College had always seemed like an impossible dream. They'd been saving every penny, but the costs always seemed insurmountable. The internship wasn't just a symbolic gesture. Jasmine would work alongside professional teams, learning about technology, business, and professional ethics. Mr. Calloway's tech company was known for innovation, and now she had a chance to be part of that world. At school, things changed too. Teachers who once barely noticed her now looked at her with respect. Her classmates, who had whispered and stared during the wallet incident, now saw her differently. She wasn't just another student, she was someone who had stood up for what was right. But the most significant changes happened inside Jasmine herself. She began to understand that integrity wasn't just about one moment, it was a way of living. The scholarship and internship were incredible, but the real gift was the confidence she discovered. Her best friend couldn't believe the transformation. "You went from being invisible to becoming a local hero," she laughed during lunch one day. All because of a lost wallet. Jasmine's mom was her biggest supporter. Every evening, they'd talk about the opportunities opening up. Remember, her mother would say, "It's not about the recognition. It's about always doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." The scholarship wasn't just financial support. It was a bridge between two worlds, the neighborhood where Jasmine grew up and the professional world she was now entering. Mr. Calloway's company became more than just a workplace, it became a symbol of possibility. As graduation approached, Jasmine reflected on that day she found the wallet. She could have made a different choice. She could have kept the money, ignored the wallet, or been too scared to return it. But something inside her knew that wasn't who she wanted to be. During her graduation speech, she spoke about integrity, about choosing character over convenience. Her mother sat in the audience, pride written across her face. Mr. Calloway was there too, a silent testament to how one moment of honesty could change everything. The story became more than just a local news piece. It became an inspiration. Schools started discussing it, parents used it as a teaching moment, and young people began to understand that your choices define you. Jasmine's journey was just beginning. The scholarship, the internship, the unexpected recognition, these were tools. But her real power was the integrity she'd always carried within her. Sometimes, the most extraordinary stories start with the simplest of choices. A lost wallet, a moment of decision, and the courage to do what's right.